Audi have carved out a fantastic reputation for building big, luxury, really comfortable SUVs. But as we move into the electric age, there's fresh challenges there. So can Audi make a 2.6 tonne, 4.9 metre long SUV work as an all-electric vehicle? Well, this is the Q8 e-tron. Let's find out.
Brought to you by AA Approved Servicing. Book yours at aa.ie/servicing.
Let's have a look around the car, starting off at the front. Now this will seem familiar to a lot of people. Audi have had an e-tron SUV like this for a number of years already, but this is the updated and refreshed version, and I think it looks pretty well. There's a lot going on at the front here. We have that traditional signature Audi grille, even though we don't fully need it being all electric. A lot of sensors and cameras just here, and we'll talk about that more when we're actually driving the car. But you can see the bulk of it here. It is a massive machine, but I think it looks really, really well. And it has what a lot of people like to call road presence. This side profile starts to give us an idea of just how big the e-tron is. I mean, the wheelbase point between the two wheels, 2.9 metres long. The car overall is 4.9 metres and just over 1.6 tall. You can see the roof racks there, which are rated for up to 75 kgs. Now we're on the 21-inch rims today. They come as standard, slightly smaller than that, and you can get 22s depending on how you spec this car. There are 3 levels of spec. This one has the option of the red calipers just there. They are big and beefy, and you need that to stop a car this size. What do you make of it? Let us know in the comments. Around the back, and it keeps that real sense of bulk and size, of course. Now we've got a slightly coupe version here. It doesn't come out as much as, let's say, the Q4 e-tron does. You sacrifice a little bit of space inside, but we'll talk about that when we get there, and it still has loads anyway. Shark fin aerial up the top. We've got the high up brake light there on that spoiler. Don't always get one of those these days. That's good to see. Now what I do love about this, especially at night time, is the brake lights. So the lights start off there, wrap around the side, and this continuous light bar that comes all the way across the back looks great at night time. A little bit busy down at the end there with some black plastic trim, but it's done really, really well. It's a gloss black. It looks fantastic. A couple of diffusers just there and the e-tron badging. We don't have the kick option down at the bottom, but that's okay. We'll get over that. We'll get over that. It's still electric. So inside, what do we have? Well, let's get rid of the parcel shelf just there. And we've got 569 litres of space in there. So it's a real substantial boot. Now it would be a little bit more if they kind of cut across just here, but that's okay. We'll take the looks. There's still plenty of space in there. And you've a little bit more underneath there and a false floor if you want. Good place to store some charging cables and stuff like that. But yeah, not quite a flat floor at the back. But yeah, plenty of space, 12-volt charger in there, plenty little tie hooks. You've got little levers there to let down the back seats if you need to get bigger packages in. Of course, you can take out the parcel shelf there as well. So yeah, plenty of space for your bag. And it's a nice high up as well, so you don't have to lean in to take packages in and out. A little bit more space in the front, and of course you can get your 75 kg roof rails for a roof box if you want. We don't have the tow bar in this one, but you can get one, and that will tow braked up to 1.8 tonnes. The Q8 is a pretty big vehicle, and are we getting the space inside to match that? Let's kind of find out here. So nice wide aperture on the door here, and it's easy to fit in and out as well. And one of the reasons is because when you turn off the car, it automatically slides the driver's seat back by a few inches and raises up the steering wheel. So when you turn it on the ignition like that, you can see the steering wheel just dropping down there, and it'll move the seat forward as well. Turn the car back off because the door is open and it's beeping and bonging. So let's go in the back now and see how that's like. So just a word that I am 6'2", so 1.88 meters, and this is set up comfortably for me. Let's have a look in the back. So nice wide opening here, no problems with head height as I sit in. Now my knees, put myself right back here, my knees are just about touching the back here, but remember that that's because the seat was slided back. So that is set up for a gangly person like me at 6'2", and then seat back a further few inches. So there is really, in reality, a good amount of space in here. Benches feel great quality. It's just so nice and comfortable. In terms of head height, yeah, plenty of space just there, and even if I put my head right back, there's no issues at all. I've got a screen down here, a couple of USB-Cs, 12-volt charger, got my own air vents just there, another air vent here in the B pillar. So yeah, really, really comfortable. And because the thing is so wide, it'll be pretty comfortable for that third adult in the middle as well. And then we've also got a little armrest here with a couple of cup holders and some storage in that also. So yeah, it's doing very well. For the bulk of the car, could there be more space inside it? Well, yeah, if you look at the likes of the Volkswagen Multivan, you'll get more in it for a car that's a similar bulk, but that's not exactly what the Q8 is for. So yeah, really good space in here. If you're thinking about an e-tron, you can get the 55, which we have here today, or the 50. And what's the difference? Well, motors and battery essentially. So we'll talk about the motors now. We lifted up there. A little bit of space underneath here for storage, which is great. It's called the frunk, just over 60 litres for your charging cables or a bit of smelly curry that you're taking away on a Friday night in there. And then a little bit more space again underneath in case you get a puncture. That's where all the gear goes there. But in terms of motors, what do we have? Well, the 55, which is the more powerful one with the bigger battery, we've got combined 300 kilowatts in here. Now that's good for just over 400 horsepower and 664 newton meters of torque. And you kind of need a lot of power to carry around 2.6 tons. And if you want to do it, if you want this car to shift 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, you'll do that in 5.6 seconds. Then even if you option the slightly less powerful one with 250 kilowatts instead of 300, you're still getting really pacey car, which will do that 0 to 100 in 6 seconds flat, so only a half a second slower. But you get a better feel for that when you're out on the road, of course. The Q8 is incredibly comfortable on the motorway. Yeah, it's just so solid, so planted, so quiet in here. So the noise insulation is just brilliant. So you can even see the padding around the wheel arches here, the acoustic glass, which is an option for a few £100, and I can whisper here and you can still hear me. And even when you're overtaking trucks or there's buses around, you can barely hear them at all. It's just so quiet, comfortable. And another thing that really helps with that is the adaptive cruise control, which is really good. So you'd expect it in a car like this. Now, it tends to be part of packs and stuff like that. You've got to pay a bit extra, but here, who's cribbing about 5 or 10 grand when you're buying a car like this? So, adaptive cruise control, there's a little stalk just down here for it. You can obviously set it to the speed that you want. It will recognise speed signs. So if you're going from where we are in the M50 now, which is 100, and then we get to the section where it's 120, the car will just automatically speed up, and same for slowing down. But it's adaptive cruise control, so if you come up behind a truck or another slower moving car, it will slow you down and track the car in front, and you can choose how close or far away you want to be with this stalk down here. And it even goes further than that, because the car will steer for itself as well. Now, I have my hands right beside the steering wheel here. I'm not actually steering, and as we're coming around a bend on the M50, yeah, it's just tracking it, straighten up now, and there it is. But a little sign comes up here because it recognises that there's no pressure on the steering wheel from me. So a little warning comes up to say, grab that steering wheel again, you're supposed to be in control. So yeah, just incredibly comfortable. And then when it is adaptive, as in you're slowing down behind a truck in front or something like that, it doesn't use the friction brakes to slow you down. It'll use regen braking just to put that little bit of energy back into the battery. So this is where we charge up the e-tron, and I just love how you open this. Normally in cars you just kind of pop the flap and it pops open, but anyway, with the e-tron you just press the little button there and it automatically comes down. It looks great, just a touch of class that you really want to get from Audi. Now, AC just there, 11 kilowatts as standard, no matter which option you go for. Now in some markets they do give you the option of buying 22, but I had a good look around the Audi website there, the Irish specific one, and I couldn't find that option for ticking it. After filming, we plugged the Q8 into an AC charger, and lo and behold, it went straight up to 20 kilowatts. So in fact, Audi does provide up to 20 kilowatts AC charging, and this is a great feature to have. In the space of a couple of hours, we got from low 60% up to completely full. Then on DC, the extra 2 pins just there, so this is the CCS connection, of course, goes up to 168 kilowatts. Pretty good speeds there. Now just bear in mind, if you buy the slightly smaller battery and smaller motor, you get 155. But look, they're still really good. You're looking at that kind of 28, 30 minutes just to go from 10 up to 80%. So yeah, quite a decent showing by the Audi all around. In terms of charging, here's a great feature. This is the other side of the car, and it's got another Type 2 socket just here. So if you're charging at home, you've got the option of going on both sides. Nice. And it's still got that quality button. Love that, bit of class. In terms of batteries and range, what's going on with the Q8? Well, it's got a 114 kilowatt hour battery. And yeah, you heard me right, 114 kilowatt hours. Now 106 of that is usable. That's what we have access to. There's always a little bit of a buffer at the bottom and at the top. And in terms of range then, well, you're looking at a WLTP range that's about 570 kilometers. So that's a lot of range, but then again, not a lot compared to the size of the battery that's in it, because this thing isn't particularly efficient. But in terms of real world, because those WLTP figures are always a little bit optimistic, real world figure for me, as I've been driving around here, I've got the trip computer up, I have averaged over the course of the week that I've had it 23 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which would translate to in and around that 450 kilometers range. So I think this is a solid kind of 420 to 460 car. Now, barreling down the motorway, that'll drop down to 340, 350, and if you're really, really careful with it, really careful, you will clock well over 500, even 550 to 600. But when you think about the size of the battery, and it's another conversation about use of resources, but this is a 2.6 ton, huge car, demands a lot of energy to get it around. Now, it's going to be a lot more efficient and a lot more cheaper, let's say, on fuel than if you bought a petrol or a diesel equivalent, you know, in terms of size and bulk to this thing. So how much is the Q8 e-tron? Well, if you're thinking that question, or if you're going to ask me that question, then the answer is you probably can't afford it. So this thing starts off with the smaller battery, no options on it, the smaller, less powerful motors at 88,400 euros. Now I have a few more figures just here on my phone because I was doing a little bit of research over the last day or two. If you want to step up to the S-line version with the bigger battery, slightly more powerful motor, you're starting off at 108,000 euros. Now, of course, everybody who buys a car like this is going to be ticking a few of those options, aren't they? So I had to play around with it, and I wanted to add acoustic glazing, 641. I wanted the panoramic sunroof for the top, 1,911. A few other extras as well, like the assistance packs, you know, there's better cruise control, the sound system inside. All of a sudden, 134,000 euros for the version of this one that I wanted. Look, it's a huge amount of money. It's not value for money. If you're looking for a cheap family runaround, it's not the car for you. This is about that Audi badge, the luxury, the feeling that you get, the comfort when you're driving around inside, at which this thing is supreme, by the way. There are a few different driving modes. So there's little, what they're kind of haptic buttons down here where you go drive select, it pops up a little menu, and we've got efficiency, comfort, auto, dynamic, individual, where you can set it up yourself, and also off-road and then all-road. And as you choose each one of those, it will change the height of the suspension as well. Obviously, if you want off-road, a little bit more clearance, help you get over those little bumps. But, you know, I think as we're driving down the motorway, let's go with dynamic, and that keeps the suspension nice and low. Now, there's also two options over here. So regular drive, and then if I flick just here, it goes to D. So I think we'll go for sport, and that opens up the full power that you have available. So when we talk about this having 300 kilowatts or 408 horsepower, that's peak. So it's not going to do that consistently. So here we are, let's see. Now we're on the motorway. There's a junction coming up here, so traffic has really, really slowed down. And we are doing, so it's carrying 80 kilometers there an hour. I just want to spot a gap, right? Oh, here it is, indicate. So we're doing carrying 80, floor it, 1, 2, 3. Wow, and that's 100 already. This thing has incredible torque, just in terms of power and how it drags up at those higher speeds. You know, always expect an electric car to be really nippy, really snappy at those lower speeds where you don't have to build up revs, you're not waiting for the power to come in. So apart from, you know, speed and sound insulation, the interior here is just, it's lovely. Now, this Audi, it's a little bit more understated than a couple of the Mercedes or the BMW. So we drove the i7 recently. That review is up on the channel. We also had the EQS. Going to have the EQS SUV in a while. And the Audi just feels a little bit more understated for me. And that is not a criticism in any way at all. It's a lovely interior. The screens here, haptic feedback. You've got easy access to everything as well. Now, we kind of give out about losing all those buttons, but the Audi just has a nice blend. So the two screens that we have here, okay, they're not physical buttons, but you do get that haptic feedback, so you know when you're pressing it and you're not having to look over to make sure. And it's got easy access to everything as well. So we've got climate control on the lower screen. The higher one there is more your infotainment. And there's just so many features there. If we click on home, just get access to radio information about the car. You've got Android Auto, plug that in, as most people do anyway. That's what I've done most of the time. And then another screen up here, and it's laid out really nicely. You can change that around by pressing this view button on the steering wheel here. So now we've got two large dials, but if we want to know a little bit more about what information is in the middle in terms of trip computer or your sat nav or whatever you have on, press the view again and it just expands that out. Yeah, it just really, really works. You can see why people are Audi fans. You get used to this, and yeah, I understand it. We thoroughly enjoyed our time with the Q8 e-tron. At the start of the video, we wondered if Audi would be able to make a 2.6 tonne, near 5 metre long SUV work as all electric, and the answer is definitely yes. The comfort of a large Audi SUV coupled with the smoothness of the electric drivetrain gives the Q8 an added refinement and luxury that has to be experienced. Is it cheap? Certainly not. Is it good value for money at over €100,000? Probably not. But if you have the money to spend and you're in the market for a large all-electric SUV, then the Audi Q8 e-tron has to be on your shortlist.